The Romans called them millennium, we call them milestones. They were stone obelisks widely used throughout the Roman Empire, placed alongside the important roads to mark the distance to the particular place. And when the kids in the back seat of a Roman wagon asked their parents, "Are we there yet?" the milestone could provide a point of reference. In the Roman Empire, all roads allegedly led to Rome. In the European Union, all countries have roadmaps that will lead us to a climate-neutral continent. I'm Per Grankvist, and I have the privilege of guiding you through this event. We will meet a long list of government officials, city mayors, and other distinguished guests here over the next 2 hours. This is the European Viable Cities Day, a yearly event organized by the European Commission together with Viable Cities. And whenever you want to share your thoughts and observations from what you're hearing, use the hashtag #ViableCities in your favorite social network. For those of you unfamiliar with Viable Cities, it's Sweden's long-term research and innovation program for smart and sustainable cities with funding from the government agencies Vinnova, the Swedish Energy Agency, and Formas, and hosted by the KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. To kick things off today, I'm joined by Danielsson, head of the European Commission's representation in Sweden. Hello, there you are. I hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Per. And I am indeed very happy to welcome you all to this Viable Cities Day that the European Commission is, as you said, Per, co-organizing with Viable Cities also this year. And the event has the important scope of showcasing what cities can do and are doing to combat and adjust to climate change. And I want to particularly thank Allan Larsson for very much being behind this initiative and to drive it forward. And I would also like to welcome Jean-Éric Paquet, Director General for DG Research in the Commission, who are with us from Brussels. Jean-Éric and I, we go far back, and I'm so happy that you could join us at this event. Now, climate change is inevitably the biggest challenge of our times, and we have no choice but to do what we can to fight it. And EU is indisputably in the forefront in this respect. The target of becoming the first climate neutral continent by 2050 is ambitious. It will not happen without investments in EU research and innovation, and it will not happen without the commitment and involvement of cities and citizens. That is why Viable Cities is such a laudable front-running project. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the 9 mayors of the Swedish cities who will sign the climate contract today. You are a great inspiration for climate transition and for further development of the European Climate City Contract. And you will be an inspiration for many more cities, I'm sure, all around Europe that will follow your example in the coming years. And I very much look forward to an interesting Viable City Conference day. And once again, welcome to you all, and I hand it back to you, Per.
Thank you so much. I want to then hand over to Allan Larsson, the chair of the board of the Viable Cities, to say a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Per, and good morning. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to Viable Cities European Day. It's a great day for us. It is a day to celebrate 12 months of intensive and successful co-creation of a quite new form of leadership for climate transition. At the same time, it is day one of a 10-year-long period of implementation of this leadership, setting ever higher ambitions and accelerating climate and sustainability transition. Special welcome to mayors of 9 Swedish cities: Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö, Lund, Växjö, Umeå, Uppsala, Järfälla, and Enköping. You have made strong commitments to take the lead in climate transition in Sweden and in Europe. Well done. Welcome also to 4 Directors General for Energy, Innovation, Climate Research, and Growth. You will co-sign the contracts and make commitments to support the cities in their transition. We, particularly the mayors, are grateful for that. Welcome also to State Secretary Elin Olsson from the Treasury, a strong supporter of viable cities. On top of that, as Christian said, I'm pleased to welcome two good friends from Brussels, Jean-Éric Paquet from European Commission and Annalisa Boni, Eurocities. Jean-Éric, good to have you back with us. You visited us 2 years ago when we started a close cooperation between viable cities and the EU Commission on mission-driven innovation for climate transition. And you are our keynote speaker today, and we are looking forward to listen to you. Welcome, Annalisa Boni, Secretary General of Eurocities and Rapporteur of the EU Mission Board on Climate Neutral Cities. You have played and will play a leading role when this new form of leadership will be developed all over Europe. Good to have you here.
I have...
Yes.
There's a question sort of in my mind here. As you know, entrepreneurs are always asked to prepare an elevator pitch on why their idea is worth spending time on. So what would be your elevator pitch to sort of explain why climate city contracts are so important?
Oh, very good question. Yes, my favorite argument for climate city contract is this. Cities cover about 3% of the land of Earth, yet they produce about 72% of all global greenhouse gas emissions, 72%. On top of that, cities are growing fast. In Europe, it's estimated that by 2050, 85% of population will be living in cities. Therefore, climate emergency must be tackled by cities, by mayors, and by citizens. That is why we are here. That's why we are developing a new leadership for climate transition. So, do you need any more arguments, Per?
Actually, no. Thank you so much, Allan, for bringing that point home. As I've said earlier, this is an important milestone, but also milestones we use to mark the distance traveled, but also the distance left to go. So what will the journey look like in the next 12 months after today's signing?
I will explain that in 3 words: implementation, development, and scaling up. Implementation, that means that our cities will continue implement their strategies and now putting in an overdrive, an extra gear for climate transition to 2030. Development, that means to prepare for upgrading of the contracts at the end of next year, ever stronger commitments, particularly on governance, citizen engagement, finances, and digitalization. And finally, scaling up. Next year, another 10 cities will join our 2030 initiative. The doors are open for Swedish cities committed to bold climate action.
Thank you so much, Allan, for helping us set the scene here. Also, thanks to Christian Danielsson. It's a great honor to welcome our next guest, Director General Jean-Éric Paquet of the European Commission. He heads up the Research and Innovation Directorate that is responsible for EU policy on research, science and innovation, with a view to help create jobs and growth and tackle our biggest societal problems. Welcome, Mr. Paquet.
Good morning, Per. It's a real pleasure to be with you, and absolutely delighted to see Christian and Allan and many good friends in Sweden. It's a great opportunity for me. Thanks.
The mission approach here is central to Horizon Europe. What difference does it make to have a mission rather than an old-fashioned goal, if you will?
Probably let me give you 3 reasons. I think the first one is that we want to capture the imagination of the public. We need citizens on board with our research, but also with public policies in Sweden at union level, and missions on cities, on cancer, on oceans. We very much hope that with them we can engage with citizens, capture their imagination, and deliver outcomes in society. Secondly, the challenges which we are addressing in these missions are extremely broad, and I think a specific targeted project could not deal with that complexity. And lastly, what we want with these missions is not just to do research. What we want to do is a real outcome in society, as is the case for the Viable Cities mission. And that will require indeed also this broader approach, this more policy-driven approach, inspired, of course, by the moonshots of the 60s and 70s.
But talking about broad sort of versus narrow, why the emphasis on climate neutral cities rather than climate neutral member states?
I mean, we are, Christian said it, our continent is aiming at being climate neutral by 2050. This is a real tall order with a key milestone, not a Roman one, but hopefully soon EU legislation of 55% reduction by 2030. So that's the overall framework within which member states are deploying their investments, their regulatory policies. The cities mission is one, I think, very important instrument in that policy work. And so we believe that if we were indeed successful with the mission, if we had these 100 European cities climate neutral by 2030, I mean, firstly, this would already be a massive contribution to the reduction effort by 2030 and on the way to 2050. We also very much expect that these 100 cities will be guiding many, many others across Europe, therefore amplifying this impact. So it's one, I hope, very concrete, probably rather very powerful additional instrument to reach our targets.
Would you say that the role of cities to achieve climate neutrality have changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic? Is it harder? Is it easier?
That's, I think we'll have to see as we move forward. I mean, cities are, of course, the level of governance where everything comes together. And we've seen this also in the pandemic. The pandemic, I think, is not distracting Europe. And I think it is not distracting citizens either from the climate challenge. And maybe to the contrary, it is putting these two crises, the immediate pandemic and the longer term as damaging and lethal climate crisis on the same footing, including also the idea that science, technology, but also experimentation to find solutions will need to come together. So I think the pandemic certainly will not distract us and will possibly also help us mobilize on the climate challenge. And I think this is also the case at city level.
How important is the climate contract that these cities are doing today from a European perspective?
Well, I mean, you are front runners. It's always important also for EU action to have front runners on the ground. And I must say the list of cities today is really, really impressive. So it is not just an isolated front runner here or there. It is really several major cities in a big member state which are now moving ahead to become climate neutral. So this is going, I expect, to very much lift the visibility also of these cities' mission, and also help us as we now move into the implementation plan for the cities' mission to be able to say, well, look, here it is done, it is happening, cities are committing. As Allan said earlier, cities are implementing and developing already. It will be, I think, an invaluable input into the finalization and the first rollouts also of the cities' missions at EU level. So an absolute great example.
So what timeline can we expect from you guys at the Commission to make a call from the proposal regarding the climate city mission? I mean, these 9 cities signing are undoubtedly, they want to be part of that mission. So that's why I'm pressing you here.
I would certainly expect interest from them when we indeed are ready. I mean, we've made a very, very big step now this year in 2020, thanks in particular to Allan Larsson, who was an absolute driver of the mission board, which helped prepare the city's mission. So Allan and his colleagues, Hanna Gronkiewicz-Waltz, the former mayor of Warsaw, as chair, handed over the report in September to Commissioner Maria Gabriel, but also to other commissioners interested in urban policy. And we are now, together with the other missions of Horizon Europe, I said cancer, clean oceans, restoring soil health, clean cities and climate adaptation. We're now in the Commission working on preparing implementation plans. And these implementation plans are indeed challenging to set up, because you need to combine, on the one hand, early investment in research, because we will probably in all missions need additional knowledge. In all missions, of course, we will depend on technological solutions. And in all missions, we will also need to experiment in society, as you are doing in these 9 cities in Sweden. So we want to bring together from that research effort, then a broader investment agenda, very much this city's contract. So we're working on preparing all that. My expectation is that the implementation plans, which will then allow to greenlight the delivery and the start of the mission, would be between April and June.
I think we lost your sound there. Hang on. We'll see.
When we kick it off.
Yeah, you're now back on. You said some very interesting things, I'm sure, but we missed them all. So you could repeat the last 3 sentences.
Yeah, I should do that indeed, because timelines are important, as you said. So we are now working on the implementation plan, and we very much hope that the implementation plan will be ready around April, between April and June is my expectation today. And so clearly the work happening in the viable cities will be really interesting to look at, as I said. So we will, I hope, be able to interact with you during these weeks and months, and I'm sure Allan, as member of the city's mission board, will help on that. And then we get going around June, when this implementation plan will have been endorsed by commissioners. So look at the middle of the year, and let's be in touch until then.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm sure Allan said many times that everything we learned we will share with the rest of the world, and that includes the rest of the EU. We've now come to the next point on our agenda, which is basically that sort of a celebration of the viable cities champions. All collective actions are made up of individuals, and all collectives sort of are made up of individuals as well. So whenever we do something, that has a ripple effect. So it's time to recognize and celebrate individuals' achievements in that they have helped us make that transition to a climate-neutral future possible. So I will hand over to you, back to you, Mr. Paquet, for this celebration.
Well, I don't have much to say, but I must say I'm really honored to be presenting virtually and digitally, but I can tell you with a lot of emotion, this contract, this recognition, this award of the viable cities. You are aiming at making your cities climate neutral by 2030. You are putting yourself a very tall order, which I admire, and I find also at the same time, in your case, very credible. So this is amazingly exciting. So to the 9 mayors, and I hope I will get this more or less right, to the 9 mayors, Ingvar Smedlund of Enköping, Axel Josefsson, Mayor of Göteborg, Emma Feldman, Mayor of Järfälla, Philip Sandberg, Mayor of Lund, Katrin Sternfeldt Jammel, Mayor of Malmö, Anna König Järmelur, Mayor of Stockholm, Hans Lindberg, Mayor of Umeå, and Erik Pelling, Mayor of Uppsala, and Anja Tenje, Mayor of Växjö. You are frontrunners, and I wish you all the best, and I'm really honored to hand you virtually that award. Congratulations to all of you.
I do the celebration with the flags here.
Very nice, Per.
Thank you so much. I should also say that all the mayors will get this diploma sent to them, the champion diploma sent to them. And I must say, Mr. Peck, your Swedish pronunciation was perfect. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will now be moving on. We'll now move on to the significance of you in Europe of a Swedish climate city contract. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to our next guest, Boni, the Secretary General of Eurocities, a network of 190 cities in 39 countries, representing more than 130 million people. Welcome, Ms. Boni.
Welcome, not welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Good morning, everyone.
Let's put it in a European perspective.
Yes. Well, first of all, I must say I'm very excited to be part of this moment because, I mean, in my two capacities. First of all, as Secretary General of Eurocities, because as you know, everyone, all the people around here know what Eurocities is, and four members, four mayors around this table are also members. So it's really, it's really a good thing for Eurocities to have so many members that are front runners. And also in my capacity of rapporteur, as was said, of the mission board, because for over a year, we've been working very hard with all my great colleagues, including Allan, on the idea of these 100 climate neutral cities by 2030, forum by the citizen, and through the Climate City Contract. So we took a lot of inspiration from you, from the Swedish example, and now seeing it materialize is indeed extremely motivating, and it gives hope for our mission to become true, but also, to become, a reality. And by the way, I'm really happy because yesterday the new European Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy, I don't know if you've seen it, was launched, and it has among the different targets for 2030 exactly the target of achieving 100 climate neutral cities. So it's really congratulations, because you are creating the path for other cities to follow in the future, and you're really front runners. The thing is that in our network, our network is quite diverse, with cities of different sizes, economic and geographical contexts, different DNAs, climate action possibilities. That's an important point to make. We have quite a few front runners like yourself, but also many cities that don't have the same possibility and have objective barriers to move forward as fast as you do. So the mission, the way we've conceived it, is inclusive, of course, trying to reflect the diversity of European cities, but there is a strong role for those cities like yours that have a high ambition, the resources, and the sort of also national policy framework that can allow the ambition to become action, because that we've seen is fundamental. So you are key, because other cities, but also other national governments can learn from you. They will be able to see your practices, your mistakes also, your solutions. So I really trust that viable cities, with you as mayors, but also with your national, ministries and also the Commission, so having this sort of climate city contract system, you will be fantastic ambassadors for climate neutrality in cities across Europe, and also for our mission. So I'm very proud to be part of this today.
So how can the Eurocities network contribute to making the mission a reality in the future?
Well, as Eurocities, we're totally committed to support cities in their endeavor to reach climate neutrality, and therefore to also help the EU to achieve its strategy by 2050, as Jean-Éric said. So it's not an easy task. It's very difficult because it entails a change in paradigm for cities and for everyone else involved. It's really about pushing innovation in many key areas of human action, I would say, because it's about governance, it's about how you work with people, with partnerships, it's about behaviors of people, it's about public services delivery, it's about integrated planning, it's about money, it's about trust. It's all a matter of mindset and really willingness to move in a different direction. And so Eurocities will do its best with the sort of network we have and the platform for exchange and also of influence of the EU to support these innovation processes by working with our members, by showing what is possible, by supporting cities' efforts to go towards a systemic transformation. So not easy, also because we do not have infinite resources, but one thing we do have in Eurocities is motivation. It's belief, it's drive. We really think this needs to be done, and we will do our best to do it. So let's say it's just the beginning, and you are those that are making this beginning possible. So congratulations, really.
Thank you so much. I think there's another thing when we talk about, I mean, the change that is needed to happen, the way we need to bend the curve quickly now does not only require grit, but perhaps also an increased level of impatience. How do you feel that sort of in the network? Is more and more people getting impatient?
Well, certainly people want to move on. They feel a lot of that there are a lot of barriers in front of them. You know, the different animals in the room, like the elephant in the room, like the financing, or the giraffe is the governance. How do we change governance? How do we attract investments? How do we make sure that our national ministries will support us? So there are a lot of question marks and a lot of barriers that we can see. But the idea of changing the approach and having missions that can see that, you know, how different interests can embark in the same sort of adventure, this makes the sort of barriers less, you know, scary, and more about saying it's part of the solution. Let's go for it. We want to do it. So we have quite a few cities that are impatient, as you say, but yeah, we need to continue the work. It's going to be a big job, but with the Green Deal, I think environment, it will be very helpful, and also having those front runners that go fast will also be very helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective from the European Eurocities network. Thank you so much. We have now reached the point in our program where the signing ceremony will take place. And this signing will make the European and the Swedish efforts to create a climate-neutral continent visible and tangible in a very real way. So I'm now joined by Olga Kordas, the Program Director of Viable Cities, which will be my only live guest here today. Great to see you
Thank you, Per.
here. The journey that led up to today started in 2018, and now we ended towards signing a climate city contract. Tell me more about that sort of journey.
Yeah, right, Per. We started the journey from 2018 when Allan Larsson, our chairperson, Mikael, Anneroth, and I went to Brussels to European Commission to learn about upcoming Horizon Europe program. And then we've learned about the new instrument, plan for the Horizon Europe missions. And it was very reassuring to hear Jean-Éric Paquet saying that it's not you, Viable Cities, who should come to us and ask for direction, but it's we from European Commission should come to visit Viable Cities and learn how you are working. The next milestone was our call for proposal, Climate Neutral Cities 2030, where those amazing 9 municipalities decided to take a lead in climate transition. And then, at the end of the last year, the Mission Board suggested Climate City Contract as new instrument. And we concluded that Climate City Contract has a great potential to drive and facilitate climate transition. However, it is not by default, but by design. And we thought, who, if not we in Sweden, should design the Climate City Contract, test it, implement it, and show the way to others? So this was a very important moment. We approached those 9 cities in February with the first concept of climate contract and with a plan to sign it already now in December 2020. And we've got full support from the cities. But since then, we have heard many reasons why this would not be possible or why it's very hard to achieve. But we focus on the mission, we focus on the city's needs, we focus on possibilities and not on the barriers. And now we're here, we're signing the Climate City contracts today, and this is a very important step towards climate neutrality. So we needed 10 months to sign Climate City contract, and we showed how much could be achieved within 10 months. And we have now 10 years in order to reach our mission, Climate Neutral Cities 2030, with a good life for all within planetary boundaries.
So you would say that the fact that we, as I say, had a mission helped us going through this process of creating climate contracts super fast.
Yes.
And in the midst of a pandemic.
Exactly. And it's also because we didn't want to make a perfect contract. We see the contract as an evolving process, and it's better to make small steps, but small continuous wins.
launch and learn, as they say in the tech business. So what's required to succeed now in the implementation of the contract?
Yes, I would say, and start saying something obvious. This is collaboration and leadership, but I would also say imagination. My colleague, Professor Julio Lumbreras from University of Madrid and Harvard, who is also a member of mission boards as Allan, Larsson and Boni, he reminded me this week a quote from Saint-Exupéry, saying that if you want people to build a ship, you should not drum up people to collect wood, but rather to teach people to long for the endless immense of the sea. And I believe that the Climate City contract would help us to shift the main focus from collecting wood, fixing problems, or focusing on fragmented, scattered solutions to the problems, toward building the capacity of our cities and also the democratic muscle of our society to drive transition towards climate neutral cities.
So I think we then is sort of ready to take the step here.
Yeah, and you know what, Per, I have learned from our chairperson, Allan Larsson, that the power is in the pen. So I have a pen and I'm thrilled to sign the first version.
Actually,
of
I
Climate
have your
City
pen,
contract.
but I will
You
get
have
it
my
to
pen,
you.
so now I have my pen.
So, all right, city mayors, it's time to sign. And what we're going to do is like this. We're going, and city mayors as well as from the government agencies are going to sign here together with Olga. So what's going to happen here now is that you will sign it, the contract, when I say you can. Not yet, not yet. Then you will hold up the paper like this on a signal. Everyone will do that and be in the image for quite some time, because this is sort of the big official image that we'll be having here. So you will do like this and you will feel silly. That's part of the process, so hang in there. I will tell you when it's time to stop, feel silly, and then you can put it down, and then we will probably have a fanfare or some sort. So I'm getting a heads up in the studio. Yes, you can start your signing now. Everybody's deep concentration, trying to remember how they spell their names. Excellent. You can start by holding up your paper. We'll see here. We have a few cities. Yes. Someone up here, you need to lean back a bit. Yes. There you go. There's something about the contract is not visible, but we can probably fix that in post-ed. So, perfect. All right, so you keep smiling, keep holding up the contract. Okay. Fanfare. Fantastic. This is our first step to a 10-year journey to a climate neutral cities. And since the cities are eco-living systems, we will be sending all these ecosystems that we have here to your respective city hall. So they should be arriving very soon. If you're working remote, please let us know. We will track you down and provide you with the ecosystem as a remembrance of this milestone. So what we've witnessed here today is 9 cities that have been committing themselves to putting into an overdrive in their efforts to a transition to becoming climate neutral cities by 2030. So let's turn to the mayors and see what happens now. Because the goal of the climate contract is the same in each city, but every city is unique. And the effort in making the city climate neutral is a local effort. So basically my question will be, what's so special about you? I will start with Ingmar Smedlund, the mayor of Enköping. So what's special about your effort, Ingmar?
Thank you very much. And I would like to start thanking you for giving us the opportunity to participate in Viable City and the work that lies ahead. We will now start a journey that everyone must do sooner or later. And we are happy to represent all the small cities in Sweden in this important context. To be selected as one of 9 Swedish cities that prioritize climate fit very well into the modern societal development that we strive for in Enköping. Enköping is a very expansive city with a constantly increasing influx of business startups and residential areas. A positive development which, however, places a high demands on city function and ancillary services. We see our participation as important based on the smaller cities' ability to take on large projects. And so to switch to a sustainable society is a very large project. We realized that we will be set for big challenges, but as we say in Enköping, difficult is fun. Together with Viable Cities and others, Enköping will contribute with answers to the challenges we face, and we will generously share our experiences. We will involve our young people, develop a climate investment plan, and develop digital tools to take greater steps in the green transition in the year to come. So thank you from all of us in Enköping.
So what happens in the next 12 months, so to say? So how do we go from here in Enköping?
As I said, we take to develop the digital tools. We have a collaboration with younger people, the schools in the town, to set the platform for the future.
I think that's fascinating and also interesting with Enköping that it's sort of transitioning from one kind of a city to another and to make this as a part of that. And we can sign up on your sort of comments on difficult is fun and sharing is caring. Thank you so much, Enköping. We'll then move on to Axel Josefsson, the mayor of Gothenburg, to see what's... Hello, Axel. So tell us what sort of your efforts, what is special and localized by your efforts?
Hello, and thank you so much that we can participate in this initiative. We think it's a great initiative and we will do everything we can to make it successful. From a Gothenburg perspective, we see Gothenburg as the industrial engine of Sweden that give us a unique role in the dimension in the climate transition, which is to lead Sweden into a new industrial era where energy will be renewable and material flow will be circular. As a city, we now must ensure that the best possible conditions are in place for our leading industrial clusters to become pioneers in this new era. This focus is also about job and education. Growth is rapidly shifting towards new sustainable industries. This is where the new jobs will come. A crucial task now is to prepare the labor force for these new jobs. This work must begin in our communities and in our schools, but learning must be lifelong. We will need all hands on deck to be successful. We simply cannot afford to leave anyone behind. As a city, we are moving fast when it comes to electrification and the phasing out of fossil fuels in the energy systems. We are also initiating a number of very ambitious social engagement efforts, not least aimed at the more social challenges suburbs in the cities.
I think that's fascinating. It's the way you sort of put climate neutrality at the center of a new wave of industrial transition. And since that's something you've done several times before very successfully, so sort of bridging on your past for the future. So what's happening in the next 12 months, would you say? What would be the most important?
Yeah, now we are putting all hands on deck here, and we will create building a transition office in Gothenburg with a specific aim to help speed up and scale up effort like these. In doing so, we will build on the long and very successful history in Gothenburg or working effectively across sectors, both with industry, academia, and with civil societies. the ability to form this broader partnership, which we do well in Gothenburg, is likely to be an important competitive advantage going forward.
Thank you so much. Holding hands with everyone is something that we might not should do this time in the pandemic, but in metaphorically speaking, I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much. We are now moving on to Emma Feldman, who is the mayor of Järfälla. Hey, Järfälla. Hello.
Hello, and thank you so much for the possibility for Järfälla to be a part of this historic day.
So what do you plan, what's special about the efforts of Järfälla?
Järfälla is a very expansive municipality, which also requires smart and sustainable urban planning. We have already taken great steps towards reduced emissions through innovative mobility solutions, and we want to continue this work to take the lead in the climate shift. In Barkarby, a completely new city center is developing with 14,000 homes, thousands of new workplaces, hotels, sports, and culture. And to increase the accessibility and support sustainable mobility, we build a city close to public transports. The subway will be extended to Barkarby, and a regional train station is also planned, which means that Barkarby will have a very strategic location in the Stockholm region. Recently, we also launched an electric BRT line between Barkarbystaden and Akalla, which will be a very efficient and climate-friendly means of transport until the time when the subway is completed. And by building dense housing area, we are also able to preserve nature and these factors which are very important for Järfälla. And it also enables our citizens to live very climate friendly without having to sacrifice their lifestyle. And also the local engagement is very important through environmental management system. And we can reach out and engage both employees, children, and students in climate measures. And a number of different activities have also been set up to involve students, and we are currently also working on reducing food waste, for example, in schools with 25%.
I mean, you have the advantage of building an entirely new city, basically, in the heart of the municipality. How important is the climate contract in that work during the next 12 months? Is that I mean, building a new city could be a bit like herding cats. So is this keeping people together, or?
Yes, it actually is. And recently we also adopted Järfälla's new climate and energy plan, which also highlights important actions to reduce our climate impact. And the measures include, among other things, electrification and also new charging stations and climate requirements for example, for new buildings. And within the project Climate Neutral Barkarbystaden, we also produce an action plan for how the area can develop to achieve climate neutrality by 2030.
Super. It's very fascinating work you're doing. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We're now turning to Filip Sandberg, who is the mayor of Lund. And so I'll ask you the same question. What's so special about your efforts within the climate contracts in Lund?
Good morning, and thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today. To start with, we're using the city as a test bed. The innovation and research is a part of the identity of the city of Lund. And we have a long tradition of cooperation with Lund University, research institutes, and innovative companies. As a city, we're supporting innovation in many different ways. One of the most important is to open up the city as a test bed for innovation. In Lund, the world's largest low-temperature district heating system is built. So leftover heat from the research facilities ESS and Max4 is used to heat the city. And the Allan road electric road system is tested and demonstrated in Lund. Lund is also involving in engaging citizens and other stakeholders in the climate transition. As a university city, we have a large young population. And we have a cooperation with civil society that goes beyond meetings. Our student council, for example, and youth council our examples in involvement in the governance process of the city. And we also have the first local climate policy council in Sweden. So the Climate Policy Council is an independent scientific council with the task to assess if the overall policy of the city is compatible with the climate goals. And the Climate Policy Council submits an annual report with recommendations to the city executive board.
So does this make you the sort of politics of Lund more science-based and less of an ideological question?
Yeah, definitely. And we already start tomorrow, actually, with the grand opening of the new sustainable transportation system in Lund. We have a new tram that runs between the central station and the research facilities, ESS. And that's a big step forward in the development of a fossil-free transportation system that connects the growing city. We also reached our target for already on 2020 of decreasing CO2 emissions by 50% already in 2018. So with that in mind, we're now developing a new program with new ambitious and bold climate goals that will lead to the way to become a climate neutral city by 2030.
Thank you so much. Love to hear that and see sort of what's happening live happening tomorrow, and also an extra point for us letting us see Lund live in the background of your screen there. Thank you so much. We're not going to move on to Malmö. Catarina Jamme, the mayor of Malmö, which you can see from this sort of city sign behind her. Very sort of clear, see who you are. So what's special about your efforts?
First of all, I would like to say, as all my colleagues before, thank you very much for inviting us to be part of this initiative. Malmö is a fast-growing city and has a long history of working with sustainability and city development. I think already 5 years after the Rio Declaration in '92, we adopted our first local Agenda 21. And since then, we have developed new city districts, for example, Western Harbour, and now the area of Hyllie, with really high, sky-high ambitions, I would say. And we are really determined to stay in the very forefront. Today, for example, we work with a climate contract to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place in the first place when we start to plan and start to develop new city districts. It's about almost everything. It's about sustainable energy solutions, mobility, waste management, and so on. And we also put a great effort in refurbing all the city districts today with a strong focus on energy efficiency, combating floodings, for example. And I would say maybe that's the most important thing, that today we combine our climate ambitions with a strong focus on social sustainability. We don't want people to be pushed out because of the rents go skyrocket and so forth when we refurb the city districts or the flats, for example. I would say that this is the most important aspect of our journey, working with combating climate change, but also making sure that people take part and can benefit from this rather than increasing inequalities.
Sort of taking sort of aim at sort of making sure that we can have a good life for all and not just for the more well-off. I'm thinking of, I know you have an ambitious climate sort of effort. You've been mapping all sort of the kind of areas where you need to increase your what's doing in Malmö. You said emissions, mobility solutions need to be better. More people need to use public transport. We need to be better with waste management and so on. How can the climate contract help making that happen faster? Sort of, is that helping in the political agenda, or is it helping city servants to understand, Catarina signed the contract, so we need to...
I think it's important to be very clear with the ambitions and to work together with others and stay with a strong focus. We are just in the process today of taking forward a new set of climate goals, and I hope we will adapt them early next year. And this is, of course, hand in hand with this contract. And we will keep on focusing on lowering the greenhouse emission gases, running on 100% renewable energy, and also start to work even harder to create a city with a more sustainable consumption pattern. And to do this, we have to work really close to all the citizens with businesses and civil society. And I think to showcase and to work with a strong focus within different networks, it is an important part to be successful, actually. And I really do look forward to start working out of this contract and that we're now teaming up with the level, national level, but also with the European level. So I really do look forward to keep on.
So thank you so much. I'm turning now to Stockholm, where Anna König-Hjelmer is the mayor. Hello, Anna. Let us understand more about what's special about Stockholm's efforts connected to the climate contract.
Thank you. I think that for us, the climate contract means it's an important opportunity to implement our city's new climate action plan. We have ambitious goals, as many of my friends and colleagues around the Swedish cities, but we want to be fossil free and climate positive in 2040. And I think this brings on new collaborations with other cities, not only in Sweden, in Europe, around the world, of course, with universities and national authorities, but also, of course, to have investment for these kind of measures. And I think that the contract will make this possible, especially when it's connected to Horizon funds. I think here we can have a lot of measures to reach our goals. For example, we want to produce more biochar. We also have a test plant installed for carbon capture and storage. I think that is one way for us to be climate positive, but of course we need energy efficiency as well. And I think one of the most important things with this is actually also what my colleague Philip Sandberg was talking about. And it's using the city as a test bed for climate smart solutions and working together to really have this real-time experiment in the city and also involving not only universities and business, but also the citizens to really be co-creators. And then I would like to underline also what Jean-Eric Paquet was saying in the beginning, that the cities here represent the front runners. And I think it's all about that, for us to be brave front runners and bringing together science, technology, and experiments that bring investments to that. And the instrument for that, I think it's real-time data. We need to work with feedback loops to the citizens and the people involved, and to really engage the citizens. And yesterday, I am also in a board for World Economic Forum to find holistic systems for city when it comes to energy efficiency. And then we discussed, today cities often compare best practice with each other. Also in Sweden, but internationally. But best practice is quite the opposite to innovation. So it's good to share best practices, but it's really standard. That's something we use today. The brave thing is to innovate and also to be brave to invest in that. We don't know where we are heading, but we know our goals and we are working to collaborate, to test. And I think that is the fantastic thing with this, that we are actually front runners and we are quite brave.
So could we expect Stockholm to be a pioneer in sharing worst practices then? The stuff where you failed and stuff that didn't work and so?
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs are really good also in mentioning, all the times they had no from investors or when they failed, and perhaps we should also be brave in that.
We might see sort of the big city mayor fuck-up session later on then. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining, and we have a participant in that. Thank you so much, Stockholm. We now turn to Hans Lindberg, the mayor of Umeå, and to hello Umeå, to hear sort of what's special about your efforts and how you tackle and use the climate contract.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being a part of this historic day and this moment. I would say that Umeå is our priority is social sustainability, and we think this is the key to the transition. Everyone who lives and works here must be the focus of just the transition. We believe that the climate transition needs for and with the citizens of Umeå.
I think there's a different take than one might expect from a climate contract to talk about the social aspects of it, sort of, and how is that going to play out in the next 12 months? Do you say is that sort of the basic sort of much the same as in Malmö, where we heard about the social aspect? How will you sort of operationalize it in the next 12 months?
We have a lot of plannings here. One is develop a method for carrying out the climate and coast analysis. The method will be facilitated the municipalities already ongoing work to develop and prioritize measures to meet environmental goals. We need to measure the difference between business as usual to the transition needed. And we will also develop an analysis for the climate change investment for both the municipality and the municipality owner's company on the work carried out within the framework of the climate neutral Umeå. We will also develop a strategic for the circular economy here in Umeå. And the work will be based on the environmental goals, the waste plan, and work on just, as I said before, social sustainability. And the work will be carried out in collaboration with the municipal companies, university, and the citizens.
Fascinating things. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that sort of that keeping the social aspect in all transition planning is really something that a lot of other cities can learn from to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity to be part of the new climate neutral society for all. We're turning to Uppsala, where Erik Pelling is the mayor. Hello, Uppsala. There you are. Let us know a bit more about your efforts with the climate contract in Uppsala.
In Uppsala, we look beyond the climate neutrality, and we aim for a climate positive Uppsala as soon as possible. And as well as Malmö, we also see the social aspect of this. We need to achieve also a social sustainability, and we see that as a key issue for reaching our climate targets. And just this autumn, we have added a new target for our yearly pace of emission reductions. We have decided that the pace should be 10 to 14% per year from next year. And that is way higher than the necessary global pace of 7%. So that's a good new goal for Uppsala. And what's special about Uppsala is that we do this together in what we call Uppsala Climate Protocol, together with 42 major private, public, and civil stakeholders in Uppsala. And that protocol includes almost 40% of the workforce in Uppsala. So that's a great engine for change and success in this work. So that's a great thing to have in the work we need to do in Uppsala.
You talk about climate positive, and we heard Olga Kordas talk also about sort of when you look and work with mission, rather than looking at problems, you might look at sort of a more positive outlook on the future and how we can achieve that. How's that happening and materializing itself in your planning and in your sort of how you speak about the future?
Well, we need to take a positive look into this if we want our citizens to go with us. We need to have the social aspects if we want the citizens to do this work, because this is a great work that we all need to do together. We are just now co-creating a strategic action roadmap that we will work with the coming years. And in that roadmap, we will pinpoint the action areas and strategies for the future. And we will work within the building and construction process. We are building a lot in Uppsala. It's a growing city. We will work with the transportation area, of course, and we will work with energy. Uppsala should be an energy positive city. And we should do all this so that we make it also social sustainable. And a big issue now that we're discussing is how we as a municipality can facilitate more speedy and also radical change of systems, because we can't just work with small pieces. We need to look at the system level, and we need to achieve bigger changes on the system level. So that's what we're working with right now.
Does that also mean that you have to accept and talk more about that things will not be perfect in the future, but they will be good enough, at least to start with, and then, because we need to make that sort of giant leap?
Of course, it's a process of trial and error, of course.
Yeah. Don't worry, be crappy in a good way. Whenever you do new things, launch and learn. Thank you so much, Uppsala, for joining us this morning. I'm now going to turn the attention to Växjö, where Anna Tenje is the mayor. Hello, Anna.
Hello, everybody.
Let's share sort of we heard a lot of good things here. Always sort of difficult to be at the end, but sort of talking about Växjö and what's special about your sort of climate contract and the way you plan to implement it.
I thought you saved the best to last. So I think it's quite easy to be last.
Yes.
Now, what's unique about Växjö is actually that, to start with, Växjö is not only a city, so it's an urban city, and then we have a lot of rural settlements as well. So our big effort now is to make sure that you can have climate neutrality and live a really good life, not only in the city, but also in the rural settlements outside the cities. So no matter where in the municipality you live, you can take part of this important work, and you can actually do your best. So the local production, as you know, is already, for energy then, is already 100% renewable. So our big challenge now is the transport sector. So we have to improve quite a bit in that area, actually.
You're based in one of the regions in Sweden that's most known for entrepreneurship. How do you bring in the entrepreneurship sort of aspect in the climate contract, not least to solve sort of the transportation problems?
I think actually Anna Kanin said it quite well. I mean, being in the front runners, you have to have a lot of test beds and try things out. You have to be brave to go ahead and not be afraid of the mistakes. And what we have done for quite some time now, I mean, we started to have a really high, we had the climate and the environmental issues on the agenda quite early. So we have had we adopted our climate goals for over 25 years ago. So we have been working quite hard with the business, the people living in the city and in the municipality, but also the university. And we have tested many things together, working together, but also finding out what's the best practice, and then, of course, again, doing new innovations in different areas, especially when it comes to our lakes. We are surrounded by lakes, and many of them were at the start for many years ago quite polluted, and we did some really innovative things then. But then again, you have to do things again, and now we have a really exciting, not experiment, it's really working, so it's really good, but we are doing some amazing things with our lakes now.
Växjö was named one of the greenest cities in Europe way back. I don't even remember when, but you talked about it a lot back then. Everyone talked about Växjö. How does one go from there? I mean, how do you battle sort of complacency or being smug, think, oh no, we have everything we need already, we're best in class, and then keep on improving?
I think that the media has a role here. They didn't really believe us in the beginning, and they have done some digging and trying to put us into place every year. And I mean, then you have to prove yourself. You have to prove that you are not really just an epithet, that you are filling the greenest city of Europe with something. And I think we have done that with the people living in Växjö. Because when I see to the population here, they are trying much harder. I mean, the Swedish population are fantastic when it comes to doing good environmental work. But I think when it comes to Växjöbo, it's even better here. So I think that we have done it with them, and that makes us even better, actually. But then again, you have to make sure that you have several things that you focus on. And we have said that we are going to be the best city in the world when it comes to wooden building. This to build buildings in wood and then we want to be energy efficient. And then when it comes to our lakes, we are going to be best when it comes to have really, really good lakes around the city.
Thank you so much. I think that's sort of an interesting take on it. The way you engage citizens, it's also a way to continuously improve yourself, and also setting ambitious goals, much like the mission here. Thank you so much, Växjö, for that. And that concludes our conversations with these forerunners who today signed this important climate contract. By the way, whenever you find something interesting and you think, aha, I should remember that, you should probably share it with someone else. As many of the mayors have said, sharing is caring. So please use the hashtag viable cities in your favorite social media. I hear we are everywhere because we are modern and it's 2020. So there's 4 government agencies that are also partners in the climate contract, and they are Vinnova, Formas, the Swedish Energy Agency, and the Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth, aka Tillväxtverket. We'll now proceed with the conversation with 4 of these director generals, representing these Swedish authorities engaging in helping Sweden move faster to being carbon neutral. Because as we know from data and facts, the current speed isn't enough. We need to improve that much more. So while they approach this challenge from various perspectives, given the nature of their agencies, they are also committed to working together. So first up, I'm joined by Robert Andrén, Director General at the Swedish Energy Agency. Mr. Andrén, your organization is to lead the Swedish society's transition to a sustainable energy system. What are your thoughts on the climate contract that's been signed here today by these 9 cities?
Well, thank you, Per. Well, let me start by citing the UN Secretary General, who said we are the first generation that can end poverty and the last that can end climate change. And that triggers me immensely. I actually want to be an active part in accomplishing that. And achieving that, we need to act concretely, we need to act swiftly. And today's signing is all about contributing to that accomplishment. Because I think all here realize that we need to change our present unsustainable modus operandi in order to address climate change. We need rather radical system transformation to achieve the Paris Agreement, as well as the sustainability goals of the UN. So I'm truly grateful being part of this amazing team that I think we have become today with the persons that have signed the contracts. And so a massive thanks to Allan, Olga, and the others in Viable City, my fantastic Director General colleagues, and our 9 progressive and courageous majors leading the way.
It's like a good point, because I mean, for someone who just signed in, sort of turned on this broadcast and said, okay, this adult people signing papers sounds like awfully dull and boring, but you say this is a radical act of change.
I think so, yes. I mean, what we are showing now to the world is that within the public sector, we are meaning collaboration and co-creation for real. And that's what we need to send out, that signal to the rest of the stakeholders that needs to be a part of this transformation, this transition of society, the clean energy transition when it comes to my perspectives, primarily, of course, because it's a question of improving our everyday lives in various ways.
From your agency's perspective, how important is this in your work?
It's very important, because it allows us to add on to the tools and the mandate we have with other nuances, with other tools, with other ways of going about things that will actually lead that 1 + 1 becomes 3, which is a cliche in many ways, but still, I believe in that. So,
well, I mean, many cliches are true. That's why they are cliches. So it's also about sort of having a sometimes when we talk about sort of national plans, it seems an awfully lot like sort of top-down, and now we have more of a down-up approach.
Yes, I mean, the climate contract makes us better and more credible storytellers. We are decision makers. We have a lot of mandate and possibilities to take decisions that actually can change society, both on the local level, the national level, and also in an EU context. So for me, the climate neutral cities is synonymous with an increased life quality for all, smarter solutions, smarter systems for the benefit of the citizens. For me, where I live.
Thank you. Let's turn to Darja Isaksson, the Director General at Vinnova. This government agency is tasked with increasing Sweden's innovation capacity and contributing to sustainable growth. Ms. Isaksson, how important for Sweden as a country is the fact that we now have 9 cities coming together, they've signed a contract, they committed to rapid change, and how important is that?
Well, it's immensely important. We're here today because the planet is setting the deadlines for our transformation to sustainable society, and planetary boundaries care very little for our willingness to invest or our ability to innovate ourselves out of the situation. And now, while the opportunity to have a joint ambition in all of EU to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 55%, as we heard, that would be hugely important. Those who can must move much faster. And we know that technological and business innovation enables a lot of the necessary reductions and managing this challenge, but addressing demand as well as social sustainability must be integrated in everything that we do now. And I believe that Sweden is a country with both the ambition and the ability to be such a frontrunner, both in the capacity of the industries represented here with a multinational reach and impact, but also through leadership and co-creation in the entire society. And I'm just one of many director generals represented here that I'm well aware that cities are at the center of this transformation, not least because that's where the place-based innovation and the real solutions can be created and implemented and be performed in a way that is multi-sided collaboration where you include academia, industry, but also citizens and civil society. Another reflection I'd like to make is that we know that these complex challenges requires a portfolio of innovations that can scale and help others by providing evidence-based arguments for change, pointing to both possibility and necessity, but also showing the courage to learn through experimentation and sharing insights when things do not go as planned. And I'm very, very happy to hear clearly stated a deep understanding of the value of that here today. So I would say that these 9 cities that we have here today, they represent exactly the kind of leadership that we all need, and they will provide an excellent platform for a valuable portfolio of real transformative solutions. And I'm convinced that this will also grow and scale over time.
Vinnova is also the lead agency focusing on Sweden's participation in Horizon Europe, and today is sort of a joint learning event. So how important is that now that we know that we have 9 cities being frontrunners, given the fact that Horizon Europe will issue this call in between April and June as a part of Horizon Europe? Is that giving us an advantage, or is that a good advantage to have?
Well, I choose to trust that Jean-Eric Paquet means exactly what he's saying to us today. The EU Commission has been brave and very clear that mobilizing around missions will be an important tool to provide directionality for the multiple kind of efforts that we need in research and innovation, but also in implementation that is needed to deliver this transformative change, and that climate contracts will be a key part of that. I'm just as the Commissioner very happy to see the work of the mission board. And of course, I'm proud that Sweden will be one of the countries that are frontrunners in actually implementing this by being the first country to have these climate contracts. And I think that by having these 9 cities now that are so clearly committing to this mission, that will in itself drive change, both on a national level and in the EU. So this is a great opportunity also for us as funding agencies to be committed to coordinating ourselves and increase the impact of the support that we can provide through instruments such as Horizon Europe, the regional development funds, but also in other tools, for instance, government agency collaboration that together with cities can help remove regulatory obstacles and more.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to Ingrid Petersson, Director General at Formas. Formas is the Swedish Government Research Council for Sustainable Development, with programs for climate and sustainable city development. Ms. Petersson, you've heard 9 cities talk about the plans for the future. Your thoughts on that?
I think that municipalities are key actors in the transformation towards sustainability. And I have been listening very carefully to the majors, and I'm really impressed. I think it's fantastic to see that the great engagement among Swedish municipalities in these questions. Municipalities are also important actors within the new European Framework Programme for Research and Innovation. And I hope that these municipalities will become driving agents for sustainable transformation and transition, not only in Sweden, but also internationally.
I mean, you're heading up a research council for sustainable development. It means, I mean, research council, they are always impatient by nature. Are we impatient enough, do you think, at this point?
I'm not quite sure. I think that we have to move even faster. But at Formas, we coordinate the national research programs on climate and also on sustainable spatial planning. And in these programs, we are trying to coordinate the work between public authorities who finance different types of research innovation within the areas of climate and sustainable urban and regional development. And I think that this coordination will now be enhanced even further with the climate contracts in place. So maybe we are moving a little bit faster after have signed this contract and trying to implement them.
It sounds fantastic. Because I'm also thinking that sometimes we seem to wait for that one solution to come along and that someone else will do it or something like that, where in fact a lot of the technologies and systems needed are already here. So that's another sort of shift in mentality. Is that something you're tackling within the agency as well?
Yes, I think that research and innovation are central in the transition to a climate neutral future. And it's crucial that we increase the speed of transition, and we have to act now. We have only 10 years left to 2030. And now we are talking about that we have entered the decade of action. So we at Formas aim to do all we can to increase the connection between research and practice, and further enhance the ways research can be applied, and to have a continuous dialogue between ongoing research and practice. And our national research programs on climate and sustainable spatial planning and Agenda 2030 provide us with some very useful tools, and we have a common language around these issues which hopefully will assist us in improving the speed and actions towards climate neutral, but also inclusive cities that we so desperately need.
Thank you. Gunilla Nordlöf, Director General at the Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth, is up next. Also known as Tillväxtverket, they work to promote sustainable growth in all parts of Sweden by supporting and strengthening companies and region. Ms. Nordlöf, one principal task at Tillväxtverket is helping to ensure that EU funds are invested in projects that promote regional growth and employment. What impact might this climate contract have for regional development?
I thank you, Per, and let me start like everybody else with thank you for the invitation and thank all of you who made this possible, who made this starting point, if I may say, possible. And yes, as part of the climate contract, these cities take responsibility as pioneers to act as regional innovation hubs for climate neutral cities. They now will take part in accelerating the development towards more sustainable cities and regions throughout Sweden. And as you mentioned, Per, public financing for regional development is substantial through different EU funds. For the 2014 to 2020 programming period with the European Regional Development Fund, we have distributed about 8.5 billion Swedish kronas, and together with the corresponding amount of co-financing, that amounts to 70 billion Swedish kronas invested in the regional development. For the upcoming programming period 2021 to 27, we have already heard that the EU is increasing its ambition regarding sustainable urban development, and an increased share of the investments in the Regional Development Fund are earmarked for sustainable urban development cities. So, of course, that proposed direction is well aligned with the intention of the climate contracts.
How are these climate contracts now important to the work that you're doing at the agency, Tillväxtverket?
Well, it will be very important once the programs are in effect and then when we will start to deliver the projects. So this is a very good starting point. But like you mentioned, at Tillväxtverket, we also work with entrepreneurship to strengthen the entrepreneurship in Sweden, and we also support SMEs in the transformation of business models. We host the delegation for circular economy at Tillväxtverket, and we also have quite a few tasks regarding the regulatory systems and simplifications, which will be important, I think, when transforming to a more sustainable growth and finding new innovative solutions.
How does one get different levels of government involved in this? We have local, we have regional, we have national, and then European level. How do you get all these aligned, or are they in fact aligned already, or sort of?
Good question, Per. Effective partnerships working across different levels and sectors is not always an easy task, but I believe that once you have the common goal, like we certainly have in this case, I think that's absolutely possible. I believe that the climate contract can facilitate innovative new ways of working together, and that some cities now can be pioneers will benefit all Swedish cities in the long term. I think that if we cooperate and join forces and have these climate contracts as part of our cooperation, we will be able to together to support and impact the implementation, the development, and the scale up that Allan talked to in the beginning of this meeting.
Thank you so much for those remarks, and thank you all to all Director Generals for sharing your different perspectives on the importance of the climate contracts that was signed here today, or signed wherever you now are in all those cities, and here, I should point out. Let's now discuss the government perspective on the way ahead. We're honored to be joined by Elin Olsson, the State Secretary to the Swedish Minister for Finance, Markets and Housing, which is sort of the home for development issues like the climate contract. So, Ms. Olsson, what's your take on the climate contract for 2030 in general? How important are they?
Well, thank you for having me, and very inspired by all the speakers so far. And as we have spoken about previously on these kind of meetings, and also has been mentioned today, mayors and cities are crucial addressing the climate change. They are in the front line responding to the effects of global warming, and can create sustainable development pathways and opportunities for resilient communities. And the work to be done to counter the climate crisis demands for systemic change. And I'm interested in considering the climate contracts signed here today as one of the tools in that endeavor. And it puts also Swedish cities in a good position for the work ahead and efforts within Horizon Europe.
Behind you we can see an adventsstjärna, which is a symbol for finding the way to Bethlehem for the wise men many years ago. That is a mission. And the Swedish Prime Minister and his government on a multiple occasions state that their mission is that Sweden's ambition to be the leading nation for climate neutral society. That's your adventsstjärna. So why is this important to Sweden? What's sort of the strategic logic behind this? I mean, everyone says, yes, we want to be leading, blah, blah, blah. But what's sort of the strategic logic behind it?
Well, first of all, the development of the world's climate is alarming, really. And a stable climate is, of course, essential for Earth ecosystems and human welfare. And as you say, Sweden has taken on an important step by integrating the climate into all relevant policy areas, and among others, the first climate policy action plan, which we adopted just a year ago. And Sweden is a small country, but in that sense, we can also move forward much faster and be a front runner and pioneer in the world. So we need to be that beacon for others. If Sweden can do it, others can do it. And our cities, and especially those 9 signing up here today, well, they are in the center of this work, I would say.
So we shouldn't forget our role as sort of the Bianca Ingrosso of the climate movement. We are the influencers up here.
Absolutely.
What should we expect from the Swedish government in 2021 then, in terms of how we might use these to speed up the transition process to sort of because we need to move faster here, as we talked about.
Well, to gather input on this initiative with the Klimatkontrakt 2030, as well as another initiative called Plustadskonceptet, we have had just recently weeks 3 dialogues with both municipalities and regions, and with state agencies and private sector representatives. And we have been discussing this initiative and how they can be part of accelerating our possibilities to work together with these very crucial missions together. And I can just briefly give some remarks on those hearings, and can comment on that the initiative of Climate Contract 2030 has been very well received. And the result is now being analyzed within the government office, and the aim is to suggest a process for the work ahead from our side as well. And the different parallel processes need to be aligned in order for us not to waste resources on working in separate lanes. And I know that this has also been crucial if the mission thought and the mission work method should be functioning. That is also a very crucial thing, that we are not working in our silos, rather we are working with the mission of together. And so we will be getting back to this question during 2021, and already in beginning of 2021 we will have the topic of well, city development to the ministry. Well, we have a working group for climate policy within the government called Klimatkontrakt, and they will have this topic on their table probably in beginning of 2021.
So the work done here and the work done in the cities today have actually sort of helped you in sort of moving even faster when adopting a national agenda on this.
Well, I would say so, and it's interesting when it comes in this sense bottom up, and we have these climate contracts now as a tool, and finding a way to really make the most of it, and finding a way to connect both the finance and the tools and the rules, how this could be joined together. That is still a question that we need to be addressing and need to work on. But this work that has been done with the 9 municipalities through Viable Cities is very, very important. And I think it can be one of the tools to get this further on.
Are there some things that you in the contract that you've seen that should be added on, or that you're missing? I mean, it could be something like sort of commitment in areas that affect people's behavior, or social sustainability that is not.
Well, you mentioned a few of those that are, of course, I'm thinking of, and that has also been lifted in these hearings that we have held. The social aspects that we are not in our aim to really tackle the climate change, we can't do that in a silo. We need to really focus also on humans in the center of this action, and that the social sustainability needs to be addressed in a more clear way. I think that is absolutely possible to handle, and it must be handled, of course. And I've heard from many of the majors that this is also something that they take very serious. But I think it needs to be addressed a bit more clear. And I'm also keen on addressing the question that Ursula von der Leyen in her State of the Union spoke about, this new type of Bauhaus thinking that we also from the European countries should be addressing, how this is, the quality and aspects of our physical environment, how that is also addressed in this kind of initiatives. So we don't forget that we also should live in this kind of future together, and that the European cities can be front runners also in that sense. So I think the social aspects and also the design aspects of this kind of challenge, that we need to get those aspects into this kind of work. But I don't think that is impossible in any case.
Mm. So the Bauhaus sort of aspect of it is basically that we make sure that we don't get a city that is sustainable on paper. All the buildings are BREEAM and there are electric cars now, but it's a boring place. It doesn't feel human. That's sort of the general concept here, if I'm getting it right.
That's my interpretation of Ursula von der Leyen, at least, and I hope that is what she means.
Yeah, we're just guessing here, but it sounds like it. Thank you so much, Elin Olsson, for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts on this important day and the signings that we've done here. Moving on, we have invited a quartet of minds to reflect on the significance of today. So I will turn to the screen and welcome all four of you. That's Mikael Östling, the Deputy President of the KTH, Royal Institute of Technology. That's Sofie, Program Director of Drive Sweden. I'm ignoring that. And Mikael Anneroth, expert at the Ericsson, and Catarina, Manager of Innovation Project Fortum and Vice Chair of the Viable Cities Board. Hello, all four of you.
Hi.
I have the certificate for the champions, which I nearly broke, so I'll just hand over here. Things happen always in a live broadcast. It's often me that fucks up. So all of you very much welcome here. I want to start with you, Mikael Östling, the Deputy President of KTH, Royal Institute of Technology. First of all, I'd like to express our gratitude to KTH for being the host organization to Viable Cities and the opportunity to be connected to world-leading research hub within sustainable urban planning. But also, what capacity can academic institution contribute to in regards to climate contract and making things happen?
Well, we were very honored to be able to host the Viable Cities initiative. And of course, an academic institution like KTH with a very deep focus on technology and science can, of course, contribute a lot. We need, of course, more research, but we already know quite a lot of things that matters for the climate contract development. The thing that we need to do now is convey all that knowledge into both the organizations that we see here today and others, but also to all of us citizens in the society. It's one thing to have it on paper in reports and so on, but we need to understand ourselves so that we can make educated decisions in doing that. And I think learning, teaching institutions like our universities play a very great role in these matters, of course.
So do you think that sort of that research and work on human behaviors and human psychology and those kinds of things will be more important even for your university, which more of a technical bend like yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm a avid tech optimist, but that alone cannot do anything. We can solve things, but we need also to have the understanding of every decision we make has an influence on the society. And if we understand the whole landscape, I mean, how we produce, consume, and store energy together with the circular economy and so on, makes it even fun to contribute as a citizen. And I think that is our task. We will really help the lifelong learning experiences here. And we have been partners with the city of Stockholm and the region of Stockholm for quite some time. And these matters come very high on the priority list. And so I think we can do much more. And through these contracts, the climate contracts, the priority is clear. We will always speak about these matters, and we will act together to form the future challenges.
Do you think these contracts will make it easier to collaborate between cities and research institutions such as KTH?
Absolutely. I mean, it's natural if we have that on the priority from both sides. It's easy to come to more hands-on questions. And how can we share the knowledge? How can we align research? How can we align, thesis works that will contribute to the different solutions? But to avoid the small focus and to broaden it up, even that, I mean, we are very local sometimes, even if we believe KTH is a global university. We have our next neighbors in Stockholm, but I would also invite, through these contracts that we have seen signed today, we can also act together with other communities in Stockholm, in Sweden and around. So I think that will really help.
Sofie Vennersten is the program director of Drive Sweden, which is another strategic innovation program, much like Viable Cities, with the goal of driving development towards sustainable mobility solutions for people and goods. Ms. Vennersten, Drive Sweden and Viable Cities is about to sign a memorandum of understanding to work more together. What is that all about?
First of all, I also would like to say congratulations to Allan and Olga and all Viable Cities for this great achievement today. It would be a perfect starting point for our joint work together and, of course, for other activities too. Ultimately this, I mean, we've heard today how important the mobility transformation is when it comes to this climate neutral cities 2030. Ultimately, it's about us, two strategic innovation programs joining forces to make the most out of our respective networks and knowledge. And the mobility transformation is complex, but there is also a lot of potential in digitalization, automation, electrification, and the new sharing economy. So the work will be based on the collaborative way of working and the systematic approach that we have established within Drive Sweden, and we work there with all the components that are necessary for real transformation. So meaning we must also work with policies and regulations, we must work with the society planning processes, business models, the involvement of the end users that Viable Cities are also working a lot with, and not the least the digital infrastructure and the data sharing will be also really crucial to support new sustainable solutions. And this broad approach means, of course, also involvement of other parts of cities than the normal traditional transport departments. So the partners of Viable Cities from the construction companies and real estate owners and so on. I think we'll be able to take new steps together when we cross-fertilize these two networks. So and we must also make sure, of course, that the technology development goes hand in hand with the societal goals.
I mean, the new initiatives or the plans from the Commission this week said that as part of sort of the bigger mobility, how Europe should move to more sustainable mobility, that was the goal of the 100 climate neutral cities, so it fits right into it. What benefit do you think that the cities will get out of that, sort of us collaborating more together in the future, sort of?
Well, I mean, first of all, it will be the city's needs and challenges that will be at the core of this work. So the first thing will be to understand how we should form the work so that we can actually make the most out of it for the cities, and what should we prioritize and what should we focus on in dialogue with the cities, of course. And there are also, as we've heard today, already existing visions and plans connected to mobility in the cities. So we also need to understand how can we help the cities to reach their goals and plans by initiating concrete actions and activities in the cities. And then I also think that many of the cities, as we've also heard, are facing the same problems. And sometimes it can be difficult, perhaps, to have the resources to do everything on their own. And then if we can facilitate working together in a more resource efficient way around, for example, identifying the state of the art and learn from the best from an international perspective, I think that would be a very good thing. Also to jointly raise competence when it comes to procurement, innovative procurement processes, for example. So I think we can, if we work in this Swedish collaborative model that we have here, I think they will, and also start showing concrete examples and results from the contracts, it will definitely help Swedish cities to stay in the forefront of Europe, as we've heard.
A very human behavior is trying to perceive yourself or present yourself as your best possible self at all times, that you have the best ideas and so on. That's not just me. I think it's the generally human sort of trait. Do you think that we should need more of that sort of worst case scenarios that I talked about with the mayor of Stockholm earlier? That we should share more about here, this all went bad. Everything became vice.
Yes, I think that would be very great. I mean, if we dare to share a bit more also about the not so good results and the hinders that we bumped into, and we often see, and that's why I was also very glad to hear from many of the cities today saying that they are very willing to open up their streets and cities for a concrete demonstration for the industry, for example, because it's really out of these concrete tests and demonstration that we really are facing the problems. Could be a policy character, but of course also other technical character. So I think definitely, if we then can start sharing that in a broader perspective, I think we would have a lot to win.
Mikael Anneroth, you're expert on human and society perspective of digital communication at Ericsson. Mr. Anneroth, you were part of Viable Cities' first delegation to Brussels in 2018 with Olga and Allan. We also met Mr. Paquet. What's your perspective on the journey since then? What's happened since then within the Viable Cities program that you feel is worth mentioning here?
Thank you for having me at this panel. I would say that, in short, the trip to Brussels was very interesting and inspirational. At the visit, that also was very well prepared by our chairman of the board, Larsson, and the Swedish representation in Brussels. We had the great opportunity to meet really interesting people at the Commission with great insights. Back then, startup discussions had just started of needed research activities in the new framework programs that was set up. And some of them was around smart, sustainable cities within Europe. So we learned back then about the new focus on the mission-based research initiatives. And I believe that returning from the visit, all of us were perhaps a bit surprised over the positive feedback we got from our initial approach to our work within Viable Cities. But even indications that we were ahead of the European Commission in the thinking around ways to address our research challenges. In this, I would say that we returned positively energized to drive the work around our research agenda further, and also to further align it with a mission-based approach, as we see today.
But did this surprise you? I mean, you go to Brussels to get inspired, to get understanding, and sort of some way sort of say, let's see how the big guys are doing, and they say, we cannot inspire you. You have to inspire us. Is that very surprising, or did you know that you were sort of far ahead in your thinking back then?
I think that we perhaps knew that we were ahead in our thinking, but perhaps we didn't understand in the way that the European Commission and the people there have been thinking about this. But we did learn a lot around the mission based thinking that they had, moving from challenge-based to missions and so on. And that is something that picked up. And also I think that what we have been doing is since then is to attract a broad set of partners and stakeholders around smart sustainable cities, and specifically in Sweden. And over the last 3 years, built a very interesting project catalog that now moves further into an overall mission of enabling cities to become neutral by 2030.
Sometimes when I talk to sort of government officials and city officials, they have a bit of a low esteem, saying, oh, but the private sector, they're moving so fast. They are the innovative sector. They're doing all the stuff. Is the private sector innovative and moving fast enough when it comes to climate transition, do you think, if you put on your Ericsson hat?
I think first, we as an industry need to address and work with the environmental footprint that we have in developing, deploying, and operating our products. Even if this is a small part of the overall environmental impact our society creates, we need to be on top of this and keep it low. Using intelligent data infrastructures and smart city technology should never be avoided due to the risk of increased greenhouse gas emission by technology itself. Then, secondly, for the overall sustainability work we do, we know that several of the challenges we have identified and the corresponding actions we need to take are enabled by the technology we and other partners in Viable City provide. Thus, we do need an intelligent infrastructure in place to meet the challenges ahead. And specifically within the mission we have defined around carbon neutrality by 2030, we need also to implement proof of concepts to create smart, open, and scalable and global technology platforms.
Do we sometimes overestimate the amount of innovation needed? I mean, we're likely that this meeting is sort of facilitated through an Ericsson-operated network since we're here in Stockholm. So a lot of the stuff is already here. I mean, a year ago, when we had this conversation, said that in 1 year, everything will be virtual. We said, no, that won't happen. Of course not. But now it's here, and we have 5G everywhere and so on. But sometimes I feel like we're thinking too much ahead and not enough utilizing the stuff we have.
We do have a lot of stuff, but I don't think that everything that can be invented have been invented yet. So
fair point.
And I think that also it's nothing that one industry can do alone. This is a co-creation process that we are in. We need to collaborate together with all the stakeholders. As others we have heard from the majors before, the sustainability is not only about environmental goals, but it's also about societal and economic goals, and as they are expressed also in the global sustainability development goals. So we need to address this from the triple bottom line, so to say.
Catarina.
We come to, okay. Yeah.
Catarina Noclair, Head of Innovation and Research Projects at Fortum and Vice Chair of the Board of Viable Cities. In your perspective, sort of what is the role of companies to this, and how can companies sort of add on to the climate contract?
Well, actually, I think it's different aspects. One, of course, is the business aspect as such, because, of course, to make a really transmission and transformation, it also needs to be based on real businesses. But I think also the system aspects is really, really important. And they're coming from the utility. The utility industry is much more than a city, a region, Sweden, Nordics. It's for us, it's a European aspects. The energy system sits together, and I think it's very much connected also to the other kind of infrastructures that go across. So I think the system aspect is also very important for industries and companies to drive.
And sort of as what have you been your sort of experience of looking at this journey since a few years back, sort of with your inside perspective from our board?
Well, I think I'm super proud of this project, and I think it has really grown and been now very well known. And I think Viable Cities really are a platform and a force, not only in Sweden, but also on a European perspective. So I think the footprint from this project will really, push and lead the transformation.
What do you expect or wish you can choose from the next 12 months? Expect/wish.
Well, I really hope that the program can, together with these cities now, really push and do some real things. So there will be continue to building the ecosystem and the platform for knowledge and knowledge sharing, but also really open up that we also can be a platform for really growth of innovation. And both in small companies and also bigger companies to really push this transformation.
Mr. Östling, what's your wish / sort of expectation for next 12 months?
Well, I hope that we can have these decent discussions because I think many of the questions we have addressed here today gets easily polarized, and I think by knowing the facts and be able to discuss that will make everyone look forward to contribute in a much more positive way. So I hope for that through this program and through the contracts.
Ms. Vennersten, wish / expectation?
Well, the wish is to now start working really concretely on together with Viable Cities on the mobility questions in the cities and see how we can take it to the next concrete level.
And finally, Mikael, Anneroth, Mr. Anneroth, what's your wish / expectation?
I hope that the climate contract will create the needed engagement from all parties to collaborate around future sustainable solutions.
Thank you so much, all the four of you, for sharing your perspectives and reflections on this important day. Now it's up for a wrap-up. So I'm going to hand over to Allan Larsson, the chairman of the board at Viable Cities, and Christian Danielsson, head of the European Commission representation in Sweden, to sort of summarize this. Allan, let's start with you. How do we summarize this of the past 2 hours?
Yes, thank you all for your contributions. Very good morning this, and thank you to you, Per, for running the show, Olga, Åsa, and the whole team for preparing and doing this. I will make 2 comments. The first one is that this morning, this is a very special day. This morning, 20 minutes past 8, the President of the European Council announced the commitment or the agreement in the Council on having a new climate goal for EU. So going to at least 55% instead of 40% of reductions by 2030. That's a historical moment. 2 hours later, we signed here 9 contracts to show how to do it. So this is what I think the phrase that the Americans are using, hit the road running. So this was an example of how we can turn an ambitious, very ambitious goal into realities. My second point is a repetition of what I said in the beginning. There are 3 words to summarize what we are going to do: implement, develop, scale up. Implement what is agreed, what the cities have in their plans and commitments. Develop the contracts in next year, and we will work with the cities on giving further content and developing higher ambitions. And finally, scaling up the Viable Cities climate contract. So we are open for including more cities, Swedish cities, which are ambitious in climate policies. They are welcome to join us. And next year, we will have more cities to sign the contracts. So thank you everyone for doing this, mayors for signing, the directors general for co-signing and committing your agencies to support the cities. This is a very good start, but this is just the first day of 10 years of implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Allan Larsson, Chairman of the Board of Viable Cities. And we head over to the European Commission, where Christian Danielsson is the head of the representation in Sweden. Hello, Christian. I'm not joined by Christian, but with Olga Kordas instead. So what should we make of the past 2 hours?
Yes, it was amazing, historic day. We had a lot of expectations this morning, but I think that it was even better. So we've heard very many good words from the municipalities, how ready they are to be with us during this journey for 10 years, but also our governmental agencies who are ready to support the cities in their transition. I'm also very happy to hear from the Vice President of KTH that the researchers at KTH and at other universities understand the value of being a part of this journey and also committed for this transition. So I think that we have all the actors in our society ready to move forward, and then we will do all possible from Viable Cities that in 10 years we are meeting here saying that, okay, so now we have even more ambitious goals, but our mission on climate neutral cities 2030 with a good life for all within planetary boundary is achieved.
Thank you so much for those remarks. And so it's up to me to sort of wrap things up by thanking you for joining us on this historic day. We have heard that we have 2 important milestones today, an even more ambitious goal on climate from the EU, and that 9 Swedish cities have taken the first important steps on the journey towards becoming climate neutral by committing to putting in a higher gear in the transition to a climate neutral, smart city. Passing one milestone, it's inevitable to look forward to the next one. In 1 year, on the 11th of December in 2021, we will meet again at the European Viable Cities Day. And we will then look at all the things these cities have achieved, and hopefully we will also be joined by many more cities throughout Europe that will follow these 9 pioneers on their continued journey to become climate neutral. From all of us to all of you, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And without a doubt, the next year will be an even better one than this one. Thank you so much.